Good evening. How are y'all doing tonight? Good. I'm Kenny Hsu. I'm the president of Colorists United. I'm the author of The Inconvenient Minority. And I'm here to speak about the harms of DEI. There are no harms of DEI. What are we even talking about here? I'm done. They gave me 30 minutes to do my speech, and they came and told me I need to do it in 15 minutes. So I'm just going to do the whole speech, and I'm going to speak it twice as fast. I'm just kidding, Kevin. Why? Look, before we even get into talking about the harms of DEI, we need to have a question here. Why do we even care about diversity? Well, I'm not allowed to ask that question. No, I'm going to tell you the reason why we care about diversity. It's because we live in a country that has Christian foundations. And the parable of the Good Samaritan tells us to have compassion for the weaker person. And when Jesus confronted the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman asked Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews did not associate with Samaritans. And Christianity remember, diversity is not natural. Christianity turned the idea of how we should associate with strangers on its head. We should love our enemies. We should pray for those of the weaker ethnicity, sex, everything like that. And that is why America has had a tradition of respecting diversity. It is because we're a Christian culture. And that is what informed, in essence, a true liberal social justice, a truly liberal social justice, in the good sense of all of those words, liberal social justice, in the 19th and early 20th centuries. That is why we've always had that tradition in our country. But something happened in the 19th and 20th century. Our elite centers of power, our universities, underwent mass secularization, ripped themselves from their Christian pastoral foundations, but they kept their urge to practice social justice, but it was unrooted. The representation of ethnic minorities in any body or any institution used to be valuable because it signified a concept of justice and compassion for the poor in Christianity, but it no longer does, because that very foundation was ripped apart from the university system. The Swiss linguist and philosopher Ferdinand de Saussure describes this as the signifier-signified relationship. The signifier is the representation of ethnic minorities, and the signified is compassion for the poor. We look at a multicolored quilt and we say, wow, we are a compassionate society under Christian values, but the signified is no longer reality at liberal universities. The signified, which was the Christian values, got ripped apart, so all that's left is the signifier, which is the representation of different ethnic minorities in various proportions. And what happened at these universities is that this signifier, which is the representation of ethnic minorities in universities, became the signified. It became the ideal of the left. And it became an excuse for leftist universities and liberals, which we now use in a derogatory manner, when it shouldn't be a derogatory term, but the reason why is it became an excuse, this ethnic diversity became an excuse for the left to push policies that push conformity, authoritarianism, and control.
Yes.
That's what happened. How do I know this? Because I studied Harvard University. Harvard University has an admissions process obsessed with what they call diversity. They have an admissions process that they say is for the promulgation of a quote-unquote diverse student body. This is when I become skeptical, because I know in my Asian American community, I knew how they treated Asian Americans in this diversity regime. They weren't, Asian Americans, they weren't considered diverse. In fact, in my investigation of Harvard University, outlined in my book, An Inconvenient Minority, I found that an Asian American has to score 273 points higher on the SAT just to have the same chance of admission as a black person. A 273-point difference in the SAT is the difference between a top-tier A student and a C student. That's how much they lower the standard just to admit more black students. And it comes at the expense of qualified white and Asian students. So their diversity regime, unrooted in any foundation, is merely an expression of Harvard's preference and desire to control their feelings and the racial makeup of their school. That's how I know. So, I went out to expose a harm. A harm. I'm being modest here. One harm of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the discrimination against Asians. It is a harm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But along the way, in my investigation of Harvard and its policies, I found so much more. So many more harms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm here to just present to you some of them today because I am president of a group called Color Us United. Yes. We fight DEI and wokeness leaching into institutions. We fight for the truth. We recently launched a campaign targeting the UNC, University of North Carolina, School of Medicine. And this School of Medicine has been abusing DEI to control its employees and to abase the doctor profession. They set up mandatory political statements for appointment, tenure, and promotion for its doctors. That means that they care more about you signing a document that says, I will conform to your ideology, than they do about you being the most qualified doctor. They frequently reject the more qualified doctor candidate, to admit the less qualified candidate of a certain race and minority. I'm telling you guys, if there is one profession that you do not want the less qualified candidate, it's probably a doctor, and then second, probably your pilot. They mandate unconscious bias training for their doctors, hours a week, mandated, especially for their senior doctors, their senior faculty. These are hours that these doctors could have been spent working on patients, talking to their colleagues, getting to know their colleagues, performing important surgeries, and they are spent in a room held by the Racial Equity Institute learning about how America is a racist country. So, are there harms of DEI? Absolutely. And these harms are found in DEI's rootlessness from what we all care about. How long of a leash should we be giving DEI? No leash. No more. I'm just going to briefly talk to you about some of what these institutions justify in the name of DEI. First of all, they say that diversity is good for business. Okay? let me tell you something. Hiring the most qualified candidate is what's good for business. They say that black people deserve just reparations. Slavery has been abolished. And I'm just here, guys, I'm just here to tell you the truth. You have endless opportunities in this country. Greater opportunities than any other country in the world. And making laws that are reparative in nature based on the harms done to your ancestors only reinforces one thing, and that is victimhood. Yes. Which is the alignment of your personal mindset with a narrative of oppression that doesn't even relate to your reality. We are doing no good teaching our black children this evil and false narrative about our country. Then they say, oh, but black people built this country. They say. This is what they said in my diversity seminar at Davidson College. I'm just giving you direct quotes, guys. They need just desserts for building this country. I love this argument. It's a very common line you see in DEI literature, and I do want to recognize the contribution of many black Americans. Our country was built by many different people. Black people were partners in building this country. Partners. They are partners in building this country. They are partners. They should be viewed as partners. They are our partners. Asian people are also partners in building this country. And may I go as far to say that white people are also partners in building this country. And if we're going to recognize the dark side of our history, we also need to recognize the positive side of our history, where a lot of people, including white people, but really Americans, built structures to help the underprivileged in our country succeed. Look, guys, I'm not a fan of making everything about race, but the left has made everything about race. So I'm just going to tell you guys, white people pay 83% of our taxes. You know, white people adopt more black children than black people adopt black children. Okay, white people worked together and they made anti-discrimination laws so stringent that you have to hire a certain amount of black people in your company, and many companies today, or you get sued merely for not having enough black people. I mean, what the heck, guys? We're not a racist country. Okay, that's the point. We're not a racist country. Every single argument that the left uses to justify DEI is a false and harmful argument. And we should not be tolerating it any longer. And I want to close this speech in good cheer. In good cheer. Because you may look outside right now and you see riots happening, burnings, buildings being burnt down, and you think there's no hope for our country. There's no hope for our country to recover our ideals of colorblindness, and meritocracy, and treatment on the basis of individual, and the truly Christian ideal of treating people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. By the way, that was paraphrased from 1 Samuel 16:7, which is, man looks at outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Yeah. May I just acknowledge that? Yeah. But the left is going berserk, and yes, they are going berserk, because they are witnessing every single one of their arguments ruthlessly dissected and destroyed. So take the opportunity to have some courage, friends. This is their last hill. This new CRT narrative that they're putting into the minds of children, that America is a racist country and hates them, the worst argument by far that they've made, is their last hill. It's their most desperate hill. If we, principled Americans, can take this hill, they will finally have nothing. But we have to do it. You guys are leading a movement to do it. We will take this hill. We will be, in the minds of Civil War history, which is one of my favorite eras of America. It's a thing that I learned when I was a little kid. I learned the Gettysburg Address. I remember why we fought the Civil War: to abolish slavery and to hold our ideals true. We will be like Ulysses S. Grant, accepting Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. And just like General Grant, we will negotiate terms that are sympathetic with the losing side. Why? Because, just like General Lee, the left are not evil people. They've just been deluded into generations of thinking the wrong way about how to truly help people. And we will fight, we will take back this hill, and we will win. And we will secure the blessings of liberty for our children and every generation beyond. Thank you so much. Thank you.